Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 22 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. I'm Rod. Just like last week, I'm a little bit mentally tired, and physically not too much, but not as bad as last week.
By the time this airs, you are actually going to be physically tired because this is the weekend, or this is after the weekend of LA Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, probably. I'm at least going for a day. That's the plan. I think this Saturday. So hopefully we got to meet up or something. Maybe more. I've been there once for like one meetup because a friend wanted me to like take pictures of him and his kid meeting Stan Lee. And while we were waiting in line, we saw, what was Julie, I can't remember her last name, that played, was it Julie Newmar that played Catwoman?
Yes, the original Catwoman, yeah.
So she was speaking, and I only saw that panel because it was across from where Stan's line was. And that's the most of LA Comic-Con I've ever been to. So we'll see. But yeah.
Hopefully you had a good time.
I mean, it was cool because I like Catwoman. And,
oh, no, I mean at the one that is we're recording and we're talking about in hindsight.
Yeah. Should be cool. It's not Anime Expo, right? So
accurate.
Yeah, and that's it. I didn't have rest of intro.
And I'm JC, and I'll promote for Rod because at this point, you should have released your holiday song by the time this airs, correct?
You know what's funny? I made a note about that and just skipped right over it. It's become a tradition now. I take a TV theme song from my childhood, it's usually 80s or 90s, and make it a holiday song. So by now, it should have come out. So the first year was Thank You for Being a Friend, which is kind of Thanksgiving themed. They're all like generally Christmassy, but I think that one kind of leans towards Thanksgiving. And then Everywhere You Look was the theme song for Full House. That's definitely like a Christmas song. So this year I was like, I want to do like a New Year's Eve like banger, you know? And it's a lot cheesy when you say kind of cheesy, but this has been a very good year for me personally. And so the Perfect Strangers theme song like really like stood out to me. And actually that's a pun kind of, I didn't mean to do that. And so I did that as in like not very many people know about this genre. It's called DOR. It's like dance oriented rock. You know, if you heard it, I think the most recent famous example is Shut Up and Dance With Me.
Okay,
it's like rock music, but it has like that four to the floor like dance beat, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a live band. So
yeah, I never knew that's what it's called, but the second you said that song, it instantly clicked. So yeah.
And then now you look back, you remember some Bryan Adams songs. They were like that and stuff.
No, I don't. I know no Bryan Adams songs, okay. Sir.
So that should be out. I did a little video with it while I was trying to record the piano. That's literally only for one measure at the beginning of the song, out in the middle of Glendale at a piano. If you've ever been to the Americana, you know the piano. It was incredibly inconvenient. I got the sound that I wanted, and no one else is going to notice. But I made sure to record some video.
And I'm JC, and I hate all holidays and everything around them, and can't sing to save my life other than a few Green Day songs. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series. We're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode we can find, along with some bonus episodes. We have to do more bonus episodes. We've said that a lot, and we haven't actually done them. So reminder to start booking those. Our first series started with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, which was building up to the release of X-Men 97, which was supposed to come out this year. I think it is safe to say that it is buried and not coming out in 2023. Yeah, because we also, in between last episode recording and this one, we found out that What If is doing like its release schedule around the holiday. There's definitely no X-Men coming out. I don't even want to say unless it's in What If, because that's just setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Yeah, or they're like, surprise, they're all dropping on New Year's Eve or something dumb like that, you know? Because the What If
would be the biggest way to kill a show.
Right.
Just drop the entire show on New Year's Eve. No one watches it for 24 hours.
Then we'll know that someone screwed up on that team. What If was a surprise to hear the way they were rolling it out at the end of the year with like no foreshadowing. We knew it was coming out at some point. I don't think anybody saw like the last couple of weeks of the year. And then I'm actually kind of interested in seeing this rollout of 9 episodes in 9 days, because maybe that's a happy medium.
I think it only works for episodes that could be consumed as one-offs.
Well,
because that is kind of the gist of What If, is you don't need to watch it like in succession for the most part and stuff. I think that might help it. I didn't love the first What If, to be totally honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite thing, but I'll watch it. They have like a Die Hard parody in there with Happy Hogan, so that's enough for me. But I'm wondering if they're going to connect it more this time, because the way I won't go into it, but the way the first season ended, they were like, oh, these weren't all separated incidents. I was like, oh, okay. So who knows? And supposedly there's one episode that was supposed to be in the last season, and they left it out.
The Gamora episode?
I think so, yeah. If you saw you realize that you recognize like a gap there, and I guess they're putting it in this season. So I don't know.
I mean, the fact that the character was introduced in the last episode of the season with like, what's the context of this shit? And also, there was a Lego set that came out around that character. So yeah,
it's funny. So they're carrying on the tradition of like Marvel animated episodes out of order. So like 10 years from now, Disney Plus will like have corrected that order too.
So if you guys weren't aware, in these episodes, we're using the order that is both on IMDb and Disney Plus. If you use the Wikipedia or any of the fandom wikis, and I got to assume that like one probably copy and pasted from the other or had matching editors, because holy shit, the order of episodes, if you go by the fandom, is just totally different than what Disney Plus is doing right now.
So some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. We are currently not sponsored or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, X, and Facebook. Of course, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast service. Rod, we had another pop-off on YouTube with one of the shorts recently.
Oh, nice. Which one was it?
One of your special ones. Not just us taking the audio, but it was one of the ones where you like actually put some thought into it, and I saw notifications that we were getting blocked in certain countries. So yeah.
Oh, so was it like one of the ones with songs in it then?
Yeah.
So it was like a Sabretooth Wolverine thing?
The Tony Braxton one.
Yeah, I was definitely high. Well, it's funny because I was scrolling through, I don't know, one of the things you scroll through that has still images. And I don't know what comic this is from or comic run this is from, or even if it was edited, but it was like an image of Jean Grey and Storm doing karaoke singing Unbreak My Heart. And I was like, that's funny. And I was like, oh, that'd be a good one for Wolverine and Sabretooth. So I just like got on my phone and slapped it together.
Well, now I have to look it up. That is definitely recent. This is Krakoan era. Okay. You could tell by Storm's outfit, because modern Jean was also wearing the classic Marvel girl outfit, but that's modern Storm. So that's a book from within the last few years.
That's funny. That's a great. I love the still of that. It's like, oh, okay, this is expanding the anthology of Sabretooth and Wolverine's affair. Actually, this one fit better, I think, than most of the other ones, because Toni Braxton's so like dramatic in her singing of it. If you remember the video as a 90s kid, it was like her, I think it was Tyrese.
I don't remember that video, to be totally honest.
There was like a model or an actor famous, at least at the time, probably still, I think it was Tyrese. I'm not sure. Someone.
If it's Tyrese, I mean, he's the Furious at this point. Yeah. So yeah.
And he dies in like a motorcycle accident. I guess spoiler for a music video that's like 25 years old.
I think that's okay. I don't think anybody's going to be upset about that.
And so like, I at least kids like me, like, always associate like her crying over like a guy on the road that just died of a motorcycle accident, this song playing. I don't know. So anyway, Wolverine and Sabretooth, they'll be together someday. Wouldn't that be great? Even though, because Steven warned us like that there was some like progressive stuff in this, like they just hook up at the end of the series.
It's like that pin I think I've told you about that I have that I forget to post, but it's literally just Scott and Wolverine just making out is the enamel pin.
Yeah, just get it over, make out, and get it over with. It'll end one way or another. Now onto the show. Today we're going to be talking about season 2, episode 9, titled "On Angel's Wings." It aired December 15th, 2001, and currently sits at a 7.3 star rating on IMDb. And you texted me when you watched this last night, I think. We're like, holy shit, we got a Christmas episode at Christmas.
Yes, it actually, like, our episode is in December. This was in December. It's yeah. That also means we've had 2 Christmas episodes this year for our recording because we were so late on the Morlocks.
Yeah. And, I don't feel as bad about that anymore either. Or did we miss like a Halloween-ish one or something too?
Oh, we were really far off on a Halloween. We were like 8 months away, I feel like.
And I don't feel as bad about that because this year on Halloween, I didn't go anywhere because I was like, LA's gonna be too crazy.
Yes.
I was like, I just want to
factual statement.
Yeah. I just want to sit at home with Lucy, like eat a bunch of food and like watch Treehouse of Horror, and it wasn't up. And I was like, oh, I guess they're not doing one this year. Simpsons like aired Treehouse of Horror the first week of November.
Ew.
A full week after Halloween.
No, that's stupid. Well, that was like somebody was talking about, the Death Note episode of The Simpsons is coming out. And I'm like, that came out last Halloween, dude. Like, that's been around for a full year.
Yeah. Oh, and then this one, I don't know how many times they've done this, but it was one of the rare times one of the stories wasn't about, like, an existing horror property. Like, not.
It wasn't a classic reference kind of thing?
Yeah, the other ones, most of them were like that. Right. There's usually three stories.
3 usually.
I think the first and the last one were. The middle one was literally the plot was, and this is how you can tell like how long it takes to write something to get it produced. The plot was that Bart's soul gets minted as an NFT.
Ugh.
and he's on the block train. I'm sure you love that because they're on like a bullet train in cyberspace.
I'm gonna just close a door on my own head.
And then Marge has to go in and save him, so she mints her soul to get in, and then she has to like destroy the other NFTs, and all the NFTs are like knockoffs of famous ones. Like they had the whole CryptoKitties thing there, but they were called something else. I was like, that's really weird because I thought I don't know. I thought like they could have like referenced them more directly since they're all, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it was just still, what an odd episode.
And before we get into the Christmas episode of X-Men, I imagine it was the artists and the writers not wanting to actually give acknowledgement to the real property as opposed to being worried about it. That would be my guess, is just kind of the like, we have such a negative viewpoint on it. We don't want to drop the real name because we don't want to actually give it that level of credibility of being mentioned by The Simpsons. Like, that would also being mentioned by The Simpsons could make or break something. So it's like, we don't even want to risk making this shit. So
that would also explain why, like, it was Marge, like, slaying all the NFTs, like, pretty happily. So that was probably some of the writers, too. Like, she gets to destroy all of them.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Korean animation studio, which is still probably horribly underpaid, is not happy. They're like, we don't care. We hate all of these things.
Yeah, like, what is going on? All right, so this is a Christmas episode because they have all the elements to tell you. It opens up in New York City.
With snow
on Rockefeller Center, and there's harp music. Harp somehow signals either a wedding or Christmas.
Was it Jingle Bells playing at the beginning? I felt like it was Jingle Bells.
I know Jingle Bells played later, so that makes sense that they would like hint at it here. Or also, I'm currently and also in the past years worked on a lot of Christmas projects where we have to like compose, and a lot of these are public domain, but sometimes either a show doesn't want to reference it directly or whatever, and they're like, just do something Christmassy. A lot of what makes songs sound Christmassy or even holiday-ish is like specific, like a very small selection of melodies and things. So even if it wasn't, it might still have been, you know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't on purpose, like they weren't trying to make Jingle Bells, it was just like, well, you have like 3 things you can do, and it's going to sound vaguely like Jingle Bells.
Some of the wikis were referencing Good King Wenceslas, and if you put a gun to my head, I could not tell you what the melody of that is. So
on a Christmas morning, da 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 da.
Okay, so maybe it was Good King Wenceslas at the beginning then.
Maybe it was that, and that, I think that also has like different lyrics depending on, like, Green Sleeves and What Child Is This are the same, very similar melody. I don't know why, but Professor Woods, if you're listening to this, I do know the difference between the two songs because we got harped on this in college. Just like a 1-note difference, but essentially the same melodies, but like one's like a pagan song and one's a Christian song. It's a whole thing. Anyway, Christmas in New York. And then when they zoom in on 30 Rock, there's that iconic ice skating rink. I've gone, when I lived on the East Coast, we used to go to New York on Christmas Day because it's surprisingly like the least crowded day, because nobody's really out.
Yeah, because most people are with their families in home on Christmas Day itself. Yeah.
And I would be with my East Coast family. We'd go see a Broadway show, eat at Carmen's, yeah, and stuff. But
Carmine's,
that's right. It's been a while since I've been there, and I never saw this, but I know you were out there for a while. Like, did you ever see carolers directly on the ice? I know that was probably just like an easy thing to do for animation, but the old fogey in me looks just like, are those carolers standing on the ice skating rink?
Here's the thing. I probably don't remember what it was like when I went there when I was like 10 years old, but in the last decade when I've gone into the city, like, I definitely don't remember seeing that as a recent thing. New York has changed a lot in the last 40 years though, so who knows?
That's true. I also haven't been back to New York post-lockdown, so I don't know what things might have adjusted from that, stuff.
Pizza is now more expensive.
Right, like everything.
It's now 1 slice and a can of Coke for $5 cash, except instead of 2 slices, so that's probably about it.
There's just a lot of hustle and bustle, and I started taking notes of some of the stuff happening, but I figured out that it didn't really matter. They were just kind of like doing things that you see in the opening sequence of like Home Alone, like a lady walking into a building and bumping into someone. She wasn't important, I don't think.
Okay, let's talk about the doorman for a second, because he had the mustache, and only in comics is that the J. Jonah Jameson mustache, but any other reference, it's Charlie Chaplin or the Hitler mustache. Like there's no other way to describe that mustache that dude had. Like, what the fuck?
I know this is way after that, but wouldn't it be terrible to be someone that had that fashion choice before Hitler, and then the worst person in history comes along and makes that thing an icon, but you existed before that?
Like Charlie Chaplin?
Oh, yeah. And so, or even if you're just like a dude, that just existed. Now all your family, your family is showing pictures now in like 2023 of grandpa. It's like, was he a Nazi? He's like, no, he wasn't even from that country.
He was dead by World War II.
Right. I did recognize, even though they cropped it, they went into Worthington Tower. I don't know a whole lot about that. I do know that Warren Worthington's family is rich, mostly from the 92 series. Is he supposed to be like a Donald Trump in this? Or how Donald Trump was seen in like the 2000s, properties and hotels and stuff?
I think it was more that he was the spoiled kid of the rich family rather than he was the rich one. So it's less Tony Stark and more just like, Nepo baby, basically.
Oh, kind of like the Rob Pattinson Batman, like Bruce Wayne. Like he's just like a sad kid. Actually, that's a good, because he's like depressed because he has no purpose and he's never done anything for himself. That's what the read I got. It's the opening scene.
Oh, also, he can't go outside without giant wings popping out of his back that people could see, being a bigger issue, I think.
Yeah, or I guess, as we'll find out, not shedding, what's the molting?
Yes.
I was like, you know what? I never thought about that. Credit to these guys for considering that, because you see cartoons and stuff, and they never show like animals with fur or anything. Like obviously I have Lucy here, and like you just can't get away from cat hair. The only closest thing I do is like when I know like you or my friend Sean. Well, Shawnee has cats now, but when I used to visit her and she didn't have cats, I just have outside clothes like by the door and stuff. Right. And it was the closest I could come. It'd still be a little bit. It just gets everywhere. But Warren, he's up at the top of the tower. I'm assuming like the penthouse or something by himself watching TV.
I mean, it's his family's tower. So they're on the penthouse.
And I guess, was it his mother that was calling?
Yep. Mom calls, leaves a answering machine message for him. I almost said voicemail because it's that long since I've said answering machine. And it's like, yep, me and your dad are in London. Love you. Bye. Yeah. It's like, fucking Merry Christmas.
I guess he does seem like the kind of kid that got sent away to boarding school, so they're just used to like not having him around for the holidays. You know what's funny? Like I think it's one of the new features on iPhone. When someone calls, if it gets sent to voicemail, you can on your phone, you can see the transcript of the voicemail they're leaving in real time.
I have my notifications off all the time, so I don't.
I haven't seen it being used, I don't think. I just saw it was on the list of features, and I saw someone commenting about someone younger than me online. They're like, where do these features ideas come from? I was like, that's literally an answering machine, like screening your call. The only thing that would be different is you hear the audio.
Yeah, it's a transcribed answering machine. There is it actually kind of a step back if you think about audio versus text, but yes.
Yeah. And so he ignores the message. We actually never even come back to that. And on the TV, like a news bulletin comes on about, they say like a woman who can't walk is trapped in a burning building.
Yep.
And he looks out and notices that it's kind of like within eye shot of, his tower. You can see all of New York from there. And I can't tell if he was like frustrated or just like didn't care poker faced. He's like just got onto the balcony, took his jacket off, and like flew to the burning building. It didn't seem like heroic,
I kind of read it as hesitation, just from the perspective of I think he's hid it so well from people, and that's why he's alone on Christmas instead of like partying with random people and stuff like that, like all the Tony Stark Playboy type stuff that a rich kid would do. And it's like, shit, I gotta do this and I might get found out. That was kind of how I read it. So I don't think he was really frustrated as just must have like, this could end badly.
Yeah. Or I guess even get hurt because, he doesn't know like what the extent of the fire and stuff is. And because also doesn't mean you're invincible.
Feathers aren't fireproof.
Right. There's the quote of the day. Feathers aren't fireproof. Wisdom.
Watch, we're gonna somebody's gonna comment and be like, actually, and I'm gonna be like, oh, feathers are very fireproof.
Why don't we cover everything in these? Was that a thing? Like, it wasn't a meme, but it would have been if that was a thing at the time of like, that black box they put in planes?
Why don't they make the plane out of the black box? I want to say that was a Seinfeld bit.
Okay.
It was a Seinfeld bit, or it was making fun of a Seinfeld bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a good like decade where all we quoted was like Seinfeld and Tommy Boy, right? That was our memes.
And then Zoolander, that era.
And so then we cut to the burning building. There's a young girl who's screaming for her mother, explaining to the firefighters that she can't walk and so she can't leave the building. And whoever this voice actor was did a great job. She sounded genuinely terrified without being cheesy. It was like the not quite Rogue 92 screams, but
there was some terror there. Yeah.
This mother has accepted her death. I think it's almost like that meme of the dog in the burning building. It was like, this is fine.
I thought she was unconscious.
Oh, what? Oh.
I thought she was passed out on the chair.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's why I thought she was calm.
I mean, she's definitely calm in either of our scenarios. It just yours is the darker of the two, Ron.
Warren flies in, I think, from the top, like from like a hole in the ceiling.
I think it was an open window. I also don't know how these firefighters were set up, that nobody was just like putting one of the ladders up against that window. But I'm also not a firefighter, so I can't judge them.
Either way, he was able to sneak past the firefighters and into the building. And he grabs her, and this would make this line make sense then, because she kind of like looks at him kind of confused. I thought it was just like kind of being out of it from the fire and stuff, but if she was passed out, that would make a lot of sense if she just woke up then.
At the very least, she's high from all the fumes that have gotten into her system, that like all the plastic in her apartment burning probably.
You know, you're right, because now I remember while they were flying, she woke up in the middle of them flying, so she was passed out. So
and she smiled at him, which is why I think she was high.
Yeah. Or we don't know. Maybe she's on pain meds and stuff, and she is a little both. The little toxic fumes and some happy pills before that. And he somehow flies either, I guess, around them, because he couldn't go over without them seeing him.
I'm going with the nobody looks up theory that we had for 92.
There you go.
Everybody's looking at the front door of this burning building and not the roof right now.
And so the daughter, who we find out her name is Jamie, she cries and turns around because she's like not accepted, but she's just trying to like brace herself for like, you know, the building collapsing or something like that, and her mother being in there. But when she turns around, she sees her mom on a park bench that Angel had just like left her on, and they have a beautiful reuniting. And then she asks, like, she's like, "What? How'd you get here?" It's like, "It was an angel." It's like, okay, you're high.
With real, it was a real angel with wings. That was specifically the aspects of it.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, yeah, that's nice. Cuts to the intro. We just assume that mom maybe does a little medicinal cannabis to ease the pain.
Not in New York in 2000. We're not getting that shit easily there. At least not medicinal.
When we come back, we see that there's a Christmas party at Xavier's mansion. It looks like fun. I guess it's their last hurrah before most of the kids and the staff go home for the holidays. And this is another like signal that it's Christmas besides the decorations. There's like Christmas music is either like super church, like ethereal, like orchestra stuff or whatever, and harp, or here it's like smooth jazz. It just like codes as Christmas.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
There's obviously a bunch of like show tunes, you know, like White Christmas and stuff, but I think it really cemented when Charlie Brown Christmas became big, because that jazz piano is like forever. Like when you hear jazz piano, unless you get signaled differently, you usually like, oh, is that Christmas? And we see that Kitty gets a necklace from Jean. I almost decided to take a note there, but I remembered no Easter eggs. I don't think it meant anything. And then we find out all the girls.
Only Easter egg, the colors of her packaging. It was blue and white, which Kitty being Jewish is the only reason that might stand out.
Yeah, and I didn't know that was part of her character until the end of the episode.
Yeah, that has been a consistent aspect of Kitty throughout the history of the characters. I think to the point where in early X-Men comics, she was literally wearing the Star of David as a necklace in a lot of scenes.
Very cool. Yeah, that would make sense, because you know, the telepath should be able to like literally read a room, right?
And also gives similar necklaces to Magma and Jubilee too.
It was Magma. I was going to take a guess, but I was like, I'm probably wrong about that.
No, because the girls within the New Mutants class there's only 4 of them, and Wolfsbane is really easy to spot because of the short hair. So
yeah. And that gets interrupted by Kurt running up behind Kitty with mistletoe. Did we know that he had a crush on her? Or maybe I forgot about that?
I think it's been like kind of subtly hinted at, but never like full-fledged, I'm into her. Like he'd made like chicks dig the fuzzy guy and shit like that. But I don't think it's ever been like the full-on, like, I'm going to go for it with Kitty. Scott, give me encouragement, you know?
It makes sense to add that kind of, like, triangle and conflict with Lance in there and stuff, so it's not too easy of a story. But the kids are just running around being kids and stuff, and Xavier's like, I ought to be young again. And Wolverine's like, oh, glad that's over.
That is the most me moment of this entire series. The quote there is what I want to be remembered as.
Yeah. Well, Wolverine's about 100 years old, right?
Give or take.
So he was a kid probably in the early 1900s. So, like, his childhood probably was genuinely terrible.
Especially if he started manifesting his powers at, 12 years old as an early mutant, where they literally probably thought he was a werewolf. So, yeah, it would probably be pretty fucking bad.
Yeah, it was like baseline awful, and then, he has all, like, the other shit to deal with. And then Rogue is having a conversation with Scott, and they reveal in that conversation that everyone is going home except for both of them Xavier and Beast.
Because they actually invite Wolverine to stay, and he's like, "Nah, I got to deal with some stuff." And they kept it pretty vague. So I was like, "Is he like going saber-tooth hunting?"
Because I guess like just a little foreshadowing for later in the episode. I think it looks like either they're going to forget about it, or that's just a setup, and I think it's a setup for the next couple episodes or something to like put him on a trajectory being somewhere else, because he just kind of, that branch just kind of goes and we don't see too much of what happens.
He kind of just goes and does his own thing. That's pretty standard for him, honestly. So
makes sense. I guess also, I don't know. We just don't know, because I just assuming that they just want to explore his origin a little bit more and stuff, and maybe that's the setup.
Well, I think I told you when I was doing some research, one of the wikis said he gets an origin episode each season, whereas other people like Storm only get one origin episode for the entire series. So, but yeah, Rogue bought a sweater for Scott, and Jean got like looking over the shoulder, pretty jealous about it, which we only really started seeing in like the whole like Terrence dating him thing.
Yeah.
Like she went from not giving a shit about him, gets her big power surge, and now all of a sudden it's like, shit.
Steven was right. They are nailing this teenage behavior thing. I mean, I know adults that act like this too, but especially in like they're essentially at a school, within a school, I guess. And so they just, want the things that they can't have, I guess, or they want it after it's not available to them. I don't know.
You say we know adults that are like that, but we also live in Los Angeles, so I think we have to take that with a grain of salt, just a little bit.
I mean, I'm even saying I know people from all stages of my life that are still like, and I thought the gift was going to be important. It's just a gray sweater. That's fine.
It's a pretty boring sweater, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess it was on purpose. And it wasn't even a lovely Christmas sweater, which I guess wouldn't make sense at Christmas, but anyway.
Giving a Christmas sweater as a Christmas gift is a bad fucking idea. Like, I'm just going to say it. By the way, Rod, what shirt size are you?
Medium.
Thank you.
Oh. Uh-oh. I was actually going to get like this ugly Christmas sweater. I thought it was pretty fun. And it was on one of those shady websites, but I was like, I have private.com. I can put a temporary credit card number in here. It was basically like Homer doing the Bush meme thing, but it was like an 8-bit style. I was like, that's kind of cool. Their shipping time is 17 to 20 days. It is currently a couple days before Thanksgiving. That is not enough time, especially because they're guaranteed going to be late, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to order it, you should order it like tonight.
Yeah, but even then, like, it's not a reputable company. It's like one of those one-off things and stuff, and they're probably just doing DTG printing, and it's maybe even coming from overseas or something like that. I don't know, And when they say that that's like that's the time that they foresee, that it's probably gonna be like longer. If they're even like late by a couple days, that's like I get it on Christmas Eve. What's the point?
It's so you have the sweater for next year.
There you go.
Yeah.
I always forget.
Yeah.
Kurt is still chasing Kitty with the mistletoe. He misses her and kisses, I think it was Bobby.
It was Bobby. My response to that is straight terror. Also, the biggest irony of everything, and obviously they had no idea back then, but
I didn't think about that.
Like 15 years later, we find out that Bobby has been in the closet as a character.
Started with a kiss from Nightcrawler. can turn a person.
It's the fuzz. He's into otters. I don't know.
What video was that I posted? I think it was something like a Jennifer Lopez video or something I was talking about, or song I was talking about, and I referenced the music video, and I love it. There was a bunch of comments. Oh, nope, I remember what it was. Speaking of, Toni Braxton comes full circle. The video for You Making Me High. She's in like white bodysuit, and one of the comments I made was like, there's a part of the song where the music cuts out and they throw the mic real close to her, and she just like kind of like moans the next like couple words in there, and I was like, that makes teenage boy feel things, because that song came out in like 98 or 97.
Yeah.
And a bunch of the comments were like, I'm a guy that likes guys, but that made me straight for 3.5 minutes. I was like, I get it.
It's the opposite of a sexual awakening.
Yeah, it's just like shift gears for a second. Undeniable. And then it cuts to the next morning when everybody's packing up and leaving. Jean's the last one to get in the car and go. I guess they took a couple carpools. Obviously,
and she's like staring down Scott as he's standing there like completely oblivious and not interested in Rogue in any way. Because also he's like with Taryn at this point too, theoretically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Jean's like, I'm leaving those two here alone. She can literally steal his soul.
She doesn't steal souls. It's the Hungan who steals souls, remember?
Yeah. So when everybody actually drives away, Beast is like, all right, who wants to help me install Cerebro security updates?
Dude, he was genuinely excited about that. That wasn't like irony. He was actually very excited about it.
I got kind of joy from the way they animated him and the voice actor and the excitement he had in it, because I love when anybody has those things, you know, like when I watch friends play D&D, or like for me, it's like on my birthday, I like to go to like Amoeba Records and Browse Records. And some of my friends are like, why? I don't know. I like it. And also, you don't have to come. But it's just one of those fun things. I get stuck in there for hours if I don't set time. But yeah, I love that was like Beast's Christmas Vacation was updating firmware.
Oh, speaking of vinyl, since you mentioned Amoeba, PSA for everybody. If you go on Amazon and you get the soundtrack to the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse specifically, make sure you're aware which one you buy, because there is both the soundtrack and the score.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you got the score?
I got the score. So by the time this comes out, I will have had the soundtrack arrive as well. But I looked at the track listing and I'm like, these aren't listing any artists. These are just moments of the movie.
Yep.
Fuck.
Usually, I think why that doesn't happen a whole lot otherwise is usually the soundtrack, the score is part of the classical division of record labels. So maybe this one, it was like not as separated, so kind of populated in the same searches or something. Because they generally know that if you're not someone that like searches out like classical music or film scores, then they won't even present that to you.
I searched Spider-Verse vinyl and I got the wrong fucking one. So
I'm sure it looked great.
It's still great, and I'm gonna like play it. It's like that's usually what I'm playing when I'm like folding clothes and stuff like that. Is just a random soundtrack. So it's not bad. It was just like, this was not what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, it's funny. And then we cut back over to Warren. And
what's he reading?
Oh, is it Daily Bugle?
It is a Daily Bugle. Yep.
It's so funny because I didn't read that, but I'm just assuming because they're in New York in the Marvel universe, and the front page story is an angel sighting, you know, and which I love these tropes of these moments and stuff, because he's reading the inside of the paper and not the story on the front that we're supposed to assume that he's reading about.
I also love he throws the paper into a garbage can next to the bench that he was at, and to the point of tropes of animation and stuff like that. He throws a paper into a perfectly empty wire mesh garbage can. I challenge you to find a single empty garbage can in the entirety of Manhattan at any point ever.
Is that there? You go. He's so rich that the staff just like comes in.
They just go in front of him and empty shit out.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I remember YouTube Space when that was a thing, like the bathrooms. So they had unisex bathrooms, and so like each stall was like its own little room. And so the maintenance staff there, like when you left that stall, like they would just go right in and just like scrub it all down. Every single person. I guess that was their policy there. Anyway, so I see something like that, like they're just following around, like we just clean up whatever he does. So he's later walking through, I'm assuming Central Park.
Yeah, that was Central Park.
And he overhears someone, they call it a mugging. I guess it could have been.
It was a mugging.
I mean, but I guess when I think of mugging, I think of like
gunpoint
or getting, hit or something. And this guy, he just like took a bag and like ran. So same thing, I guess. I just think it was a robbery or whatever.
I don't know the legal definition of mugging, so I'm not going to argue with you on it.
I just as anecdotally, like I think of like violence and stuff, or at least a little bit. And this guy, he was already like running away by the time Warren saw him with this suitcase. And so Warren, in broad daylight, literally, and also in probably one of the busiest areas in the country.
Yeah, that was actually one of the critiques of one of the wikis, which, don't get me wrong, I get why they didn't do it, but it's like, oh, when he's looking down the streets are empty without cars, which can't happen in New York. And it's like, dude, they're not going to animate that shit. Right. Calm down. But yes, in theory, especially with the trees having like no leaves and stuff like that, you are just exposed to the world in New York at that point. You might as well run around naked. So,
and at this point, he doesn't have a costume, so he's just him, but with wings and no jacket. And he flies away, and then we see.
Did you recognize the person at first? Like did you? Because I honestly didn't until we get the later reveal.
I didn't from the behind view. Later, when we see his face, I made an assumption because of the color of his hair. But it wasn't clear until he actually said it.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was going to be like a William Stryker or like somebody like that who was going to pop up.
Actually, honestly, for a little while, the reason I wrote down trench-coated person, I was like, it's probably Mystique again, right? It's always Mystique. Like,
I mean, that's not a horrible assumption. So
right. So he pursues the guy and the thief and like hangs him up on a flagpole. I love how the guy like promises to become religious. Like he's like, I'll go to church.
Yeah.
I guess it's supposed to play into the religious imagery, like of an angel.
Well, yeah, because if you get picked up by a thing that looks like an angel, it's like, oh God is actually coming for me, is the terror that's going through your mind. So, because remember, we've talked about this world, mutants are not a known quantity, so it really is, whether religious iconography or mythical, cryptids and stuff like that, they don't have a frame of reference to look at this person and be like, oh no, that's just a mutant. That's not a thing to these people yet.
Yeah. And then the guy that got robbed, who feels like he was animated too specifically to be a generic person, so I'm assuming it's somebody they knew, like whoever they,
I got a very similar vibe to it. It was definitely like inspired by somebody.
Yeah, it's like
this animation studio just does a great job of character design, and I think I mentioned this about another character in the past. Like, it was in the second Juggernaut episode where there was a scientist who was like very designed.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's not just generic person. Like, there's actually character to it, which, I mean, I don't know if that specifically goes to Steven's credit, but, maybe that was like a thing of like, we don't draw a person unless we give them a full look.
Yeah, so it looks very distinct. Yeah. And that guy is explained to a police officer, and it's New York because the police officer's on a horse.
And he has red hair, so he's obviously Irish.
Oh, yeah, because then he started talking. He's like, oh, where'd that come from? He's telling him about an angel that stopped the robbery.
His last name started with a Mick or ended with an O'Reilly. Right. So
and so this guy is trying to explain to this cop that an angel came and pursued the thief, and the cop's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And just as soon as
he thinks he's fucking loaded. He thinks he is gone right now.
Which is, finding a random person who doesn't have his belongings, like who says he's a businessman that doesn't have his briefcase with him in the middle of Central Park.
Ranting and raving about, absolutely.
Maybe. And right as the cop is like basically kind of smirking at him, the briefcase just drops out of the sky. And like, Warren has really good aim because like it just would have like impaled that horse.
Also, I really hope that this guy did not have like an early laptop or something in there, because there was no protection for impact in laptops of that era. Those were like just glass, basically. Yeah. They were bricks that were as fragile as glass.
And I had a Toshiba at the time, and the hinges were always what would break first. Because like I guess they just didn't account for like, oh, we're just gonna be like opening and closing this thing more than any other thing that you're going to do on this machine. So, yeah, and then the trench-coated person sees Warren, get dressed again, basically, and I think that's when we see his face, and that's when I was like, is that Magneto? Because old guy with white hair. Yeah,
he puts the jacket back on, and that's when we see another shot of the trench coat person. So
and then we see a montage of people all around the city watching the news. And the news reports talking about how an angel stopped this mugging. And
then we get a second newspaper, which is not the Daily Bugle.
Okay, I didn't recognize that one.
It was the Daily Globe, which I think was a joke around Superman, because Superman is...
Yeah, okay, I was wondering. There's like, there has to be more than one newspaper in New York.
I mean, there's New York Times and New York Post, so it does make sense.
Yeah. I wonder if you could... They probably didn't think this far. If you can judge, like, what characters' political leanings are based on which fictional newspaper they're reading.
If you're into conspiracy theories, then you're reading Daily Bugle, obviously, because that's J. Jonah Jameson writing it.
I love that they turned him into like an internet commentary person in the MCU.
Also, and I know you haven't played it, but in Spider-Man, the video games, he's doing podcasts, and he totally goes full Alex Jones at certain points.
That's great. That makes sense. It makes sense.
And they have a counter podcast that is this like young girl who's doing like interviews with people in the community and stuff like that. It's a great juxtaposition between the two, because he's just screaming lunatic 90% of the time, and there's that 10% of the time where he's right there like, oh, I see why he still gets some followers, because there are certain things he's saying that are technically accurate.
Yeah. Like just enough truth.
Yep. But neither here nor there. Speaking of the conspiracy theory aspect of it, though, there's one guy on one of the radio programs who's literally saying, like, oh, yeah, it's like UFOs.
Yeah.
Like, literally just like full-blown UFOs. And there's kids who are listening to a boombox, but also listening to like an NPR-style radio program, which that I'm going to call bullshit on. If you are kids sitting around a boombox, you are not listening to talk radio.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to their credit, they were like mocking it. I also don't see them doing that unless
I don't see them letting it sit around that long to get to that point to find something to mock.
Yeah, they're just like, remember, we're basically in the 90s. And in the mansion, they're seeing the news report, And Beast actually quotes the Bible about, was it angels unaware? I don't remember the whole scripture. And
something about like people not being aware they're seeing angels and in real life and stuff like that. I don't.
And Xavier just assumes it's Shakespeare, and Beast is like, no, the Bible. And then
yes, I did. I laughed at that. I legitimately laughed at that. This version of Xavier is so different than 92. Like, I feel like 92 would have picked up on it being the Bible, but this is like, I don't even want to say cynical or jaded Xavier. It's just a little more scientifically focused Xavier.
Yeah. He's still learning. He's relatively young, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. But then I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Beast follows that up with a Shakespeare quote.
Yes, he does. Yeah, because to the point where Rogue literally says that's Shakespeare.
Yeah, Xavier wants to find him, and this was a great like plot point about why they mentioned doing security upgrades to Cerebro earlier. Is that's why they couldn't detect Warren in time, and so Warren was able to do all this stuff in New York without Xavier being aware that was happening. And that's what Xavier says. He's like, oh, we was it Scott, I think, in this conversation was like, maybe it's a real angel or something.
Well, Xavier doesn't believe it's of heavenly origin, and Scott's like, but what if it was? And Rogue is like, kind of gives the look.
She laughs. And I guess I never associated Scott with being religious, but it fits the whole profile of being a Boy Scout, going by the rules. He gives a little exposition about when he lost his family. And
later on, yeah,
and then he thought his brother was. That's why, he kind of like primed himself to believe in angels and stuff. And I like that Rogue laughed at him though, and then she had to ball. And then she gets all excited, and she's like, "Well, we should, Xavier's like, we should go find him." And Rogue's like, "Oh, me and Scott will go." I was like, "Oh, okay." She's already moving into that territory.
She's going for it. Yeah. Jean is far away. God knows where Taryn is at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like Rogue doesn't even give a shit about Taryn. She's just like, Jean's in the same house, so I have to beat her out.
And before, we definitely saw that it was her having a crush on Scott. Here, it's almost like, instead of being 50-50, it's like 70% she wants to get out of the house. Because she keeps saying, like, let's get out of the mansion or whatever. And so, Xavier, I think, tells Beast to, like, gather the information to send with these two so they can go to the city and try to go find Warren. And when they cut over to them in the city trying to find Warren, and forget, like, this is pre-internet day, or internet was around but not,
there was no social media.
It was super early, so it might not be your go-to right then, because this is what, 2002 or something. So
this aired in 2001. So 2001. Yeah, I mean, at the latest this was written was early 2001. So this was like, I want to say maybe you had MySpace at that point.
Yeah, I don't think there was MySpace at that time, because I was in college.
By this time, there was definitely MySpace, because I was a freshman in school when MySpace came out.
Okay. Man, I probably just didn't hop onto it right away. But
you guys had the Wi-Fi campus. What the fuck were you doing? Right? Talking to people?
Yeah. Actually,
drinking?
Amen. Like that, everybody was just instant messaging each other, basically texting 10 years earlier. But so they're the city, and they're just kind of going, for lack of better words, door to door. Like, yeah. Not door to door in like one right after the other, but like any plausible spot. Like if they saw someone in the news, you saw them go to like that woman in her daughter's house, or wherever they're staying now. I guess it's not their house. Just see like if they saw them, and then like talk to the guy.
They get chased by the homeless guy who has the "Angels are among us" as opposed to the "End is nigh" sign. Yeah, which it's like the most positive way to view the person who is lost it on the street, because it's like, oh, it's actually a sign of hope as opposed to the world is ending, which is normally how it's associated. Right.
And in this sense, the guy's not crazy. Like, he probably
he's actually accurate. Yeah.
And I think we see him talk to the guy that got his briefcase stolen in the park, and they end up at Cafe 48. I'm assuming the 48 is some import. Okay.
I wrote it down, and then I didn't actually look it up.
Well, while you're looking that up, at the cafe, Rogue is like, this is all good. We can keep looking for him, but let's do something fun while we're in the city, which is fair.
Why is there a Cafe 48 in actual... Okay, it's in Bayside, not Bayville. I was like, what the damn it, Rod? Apparently there's one in Bayside, but not in Manhattan. So, no, I'm blaming you.
Thing. So they're inside getting some, like, hot drinks and stuff, because, once again, it's like the middle of winter in New York, and they're going door to door.
Yeah, it's probably, like, legit 20 degrees out.
Yeah, and Rogue... is like, let's keep looking, but also like, let's do something fun while we're in the city. She suggests going to a record store because Scott didn't ever get her a gift in return, and because it's a nice way to get somebody to buy something for you. And they go record browsing,
That's where they actually have the conversation around Scott believing, like, well, what if it is actually an angel? To your point from earlier, yeah.
And that's when Rogue laughs at him. That's right.
Right.
And he explains the whole thing about losing his brother, and then they end that conversation with him being like, not that Alex was the angel, but that
there was a guardian angel looking over him.
Yeah. And that segues into, they said Brooklyn Bridge. Is it actually the Brooklyn Bridge? I know these always get like mixed up.
I cannot tell you what each bridge is,
Okay.
to be totally honest. As long as I have lived there, I literally just follow GPS. I do not know which one is which.
They said it. They said it was Brooklyn Bridge later, so I'm going to assume that's what it was. The trench coat guy is standing on top, so clearly not just a person. And he's kind of like waiting for Warren to fly by.
Which I thought, as Warren was starting to fly by, that it was him like setting up a meeting with him at first.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Which is not what it was, but that's what I would like. I was like, that's a very specific spot to stand as a normal person. You can't just walk up there, you know?
Yeah, and then this was confirmation that it was Magneto because he just starts fucking up the bridge. But he's like not attacking it to take the bridge down. He's just trying to cause enough trouble to like attract Warren's attention. So he like snaps a couple of cables. It sends one of the cars with like a family, like a nuclear family, off the bridge, and does kind of the Spider-Man thing where it's not out in the water yet.
And this is actually where we see Warren does have a costume, and the closest equivalent to it was his pre-X-Men costume. When you see some of his like pre-X-Men #1 flashbacks, it was referred to as the Avenging Angel is the name of that costume. Very similar color tones with the blacks and reds as the key features of it.
And I guess in this show they're doing a lot of more showing, don't telling, because
telling.
What's that?
You said showing, don't telling.
Oh, showing and not telling.
It was like those are not words. Right?
Sure. It's not even the second episode yet. And because in '92 they would like kind of. I was under the impression that Warren has a costume now because he's been cited at least twice. So he's like, I should cover my face up and not look like the richest person in the city that I am.
And I think this still goes back to like the pre-internet era of like you wouldn't get away with having, you know, all the CCTV cameras and stuff like that. Somebody would have gotten a picture of his face in the modern era.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And posted everywhere. But I guess he's just getting a little too much attention, so he wants to like hide a little bit. So he swoops in to rescue this family, but he saves the little girl first. Then he goes back for the parents, very barely gets the parents off the car before it goes into the river. Then everybody's celebrating him, and Magneto is still in his trench coat, is kind of coming up in the crowd, and then he like basically trips Warren, and then Warren knocks the little girl into the water.
Yeah, he uses the cord around Warren's ankle, which makes Warren like kind of like kick back, which results in his wing knocking this kid off the bridge, which you have to knock a kid pretty hard to send them flying over the edge of a bridge. I'm just going to say
he's got to have strong wings, right? To fly.
To support him, yeah.
Then he runs into, he jumps into the water to rescue the girl. And I'm glad that they did reference this later. I was like, that's fucking cold. She's still probably going to die when she gets out of there. And they did like talk about that, like that she was, you know, kind of getting hypothermia and stuff.
Also, wouldn't that fall have killed her? Like on contact? Like
it depends, right? Yeah.
Like, isn't that part of the thing when people jump off bridges is not to drown? It's because the impact takes them out?
Oh, I didn't know that. I
don't know. I could be wrong, but like, I think that's why some people die.
And especially if it's like a little kid and they're not expecting, you know, they're not being aerodynamic.
No, she's probably flailing and
and just like belly flop, you know, smack like all like surface contact and
awful, absolutely awful. Probably accurate, but absolutely awful.
And then I thought he was going to drown.
Oh yeah, because he like tries to surface and he doesn't get out of the water at first, and then he's able to make it out.
For a split second, I was like, are they going to reveal that his wings get waterlogged and that's like his weakness? Like you get that would be hilarious.
That's like the lamest weakness ever, is you just can't go in water.
But no, he does get out. But then when he gets back up, Magneto kind of does it's almost like a Simpsons gag where he like disguises his voice in the crowd. He's like, I saw him do it.
Yeah, that was the one thing where I was like, wait, is it now not Magneto? Because the voice was different enough. And I was like, oh, okay, got it. I was just like, did they switch the voice actor or something?
Yeah, and then he just kind of like fucks off, and then the crowd is already going. They're like, yeah, it's his fault. I saw him. And people are like reiterating things that they didn't see themselves. Like the same, like I think literally the same voices that were like, you saved her, like on the turn of a dime, were like, it's like, no, I saw him trip her, you know?
Well, Rod, you got to remember, people are fucking idiots.
Yeah. And so yeah, they turned on him real quick, and it's like, man, this is a very different Magneto than we're used to. It's like, so he's not even ethical in this in his own head. Like he's setting up, like, this didn't happen for real. He like set everything from the beginning to like everything was entrapment. I don't know. I'm not sure if I like that or not. This is it, you know, because
I like it being different. It's much harder for this Magneto to have like anti-hero moments, at least in the current like story. But it's like you also remember early Magneto, like pre-1980s, was basically just like, I am a villain.
So then we catch up with Rogue and Scott. They're at the record store browsing records, one of my favorite things to do.
Which I just got to point out real quick. In the next episode, there is a record store scene, and it felt like they literally just used the exact same environment between the two. Yeah. It's like, record stores haven't been a thing this entire series, and then we get 2 episodes in a row, record stores.
Yeah, they were like, we already have the background, and it's only for a second, so we only need it for a second.
Yeah, cost savings. What I did think was interesting is apparently there are 2 like named students from the school who I can't tell you who the fuck they are.
Yeah, me either.
But the 2 kids in the scene are apparently also from school. So,
you know what's funny? That's a good continuity thing, but probably a cost saving measure, right? Because you just have like a cast that you're constantly using. He has these 2 girls that are walking by or talking about the angel sighting on the bridge and stuff. And
right.
Rogue and Scott overhear that, and they're like, "Oh, that sounds like our guy." And so they go to so then we cut over to the hospital. We see that the girl is like very sick. She did get like hypothermia or whatever, and she's not conscious in the hospital bed. And doctor's like,
that's because her neck is broken from falling off a fucking bridge.
Right. The doctor's like, yeah, she's actually already not made it. We just wanted to like humor you this whole time.
It's the worst doctor ever.
Right.
We're gonna make you think there's a Christmas miracle.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before. I forget if it was on the podcast or not. One of my favorite things on TikTok, even though it's not legit at all, is when these, not spam accounts, these like kind of body accounts just take clips out of like TV shows and then like put scenes on there, and then you try to bait you into the next scene. But it's usually a bunch of shows I would never watch myself. Like I don't watch Grey's Anatomy and stuff. I've seen a few clips. There was one clip from one of those shows. I don't know which one it was. It was one of the, hospital dramas where that happened. They, by accident, because there's a girl that's like unconscious, but she's not recognizable because of whatever accident she had. And it was like her and her best friend. So they actually switched the girl, and the parents are with a girl they think is their daughter, but it's actually the best friend that was pronounced dead.
Oh,
and
God.
The parents of the...
So they had a swap?
Yeah, and so the doctors had... The clip I watched was the doctors deciding like who has to go sort it out amongst the parents, because they have to deal with it simultaneously. And so like they have to tell one set of parents that like your daughter still has a chance of being, making it, and then yours did not already.
So tell me it was something completely callous, like they were like, and 1, 2, 3, shoot, and it was rock, paper, scissors.
Whoever ended up doing it, it sounded like they were responsible for it. I didn't watch the whole episode, it was just this little clip, but I guess maybe they were the one that made the call or something. I don't know. But yeah, that happened in some random show that I forget, I don't know the title of. And so the doctor's like, well, we should go. I guess they're just leaving the room. This was clearly for the plot, because usually in TV shows, at least, people like parents and loved ones like stay by the hospital beds, like
one will step away and the other one will go with the doctor and stuff. Yeah.
So, but
all the windows that are easily opened in this hospital. That is the cartoon trope, because you try to open a window beyond a crack, it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, and some of them don't. They're just bolted shut, right?
Yeah, like it's literally like you cannot open it.
And so when the parents leave, Warren flies in. We're assuming because he's feels guilty, because he's still under the impression that he did it.
Right. He doesn't know that anything happened with Magneto. Yeah.
And then he hears a nurse come in, so he hides behind one of those like cloth
the curtains.
And nurse is deaf because she can't. I don't know. So she can't hear this person in the room with giant wings scuffling around enough that he can put like a lab coat on or a doctor's jacket on, and then sneaks out with her still like kind of in the room.
Dude, nurses work crazy amounts of hours. It's the holiday. Give this person the benefit of the doubt. They were friggin' tired, okay?
Yeah. And so he looks like he's gonna make it out. Then Rogue and Scott are talking to the front desk person, and I feel like this front desk person is telling them a lot more than you're supposed to.
Breaking absolute privacy violations with that.
And he tells them, the only thing I remember is the parents saying they're going to go to church to pray.
Yep.
You think that's going to be the lead, but then right then Warren starts molting, and he like a feather falls out of his trench coat, and Rogue's like, "It's him!" It's like, way to be discreet, Rogue.
Yeah, Rogue sucks as a secret agent was my comment there.
And so now there's like a pursuit. They have to like run through the hospital, which is super safe once you get, like you said, Christmas in New York hospital.
Yeah, throws one of the carts that has like, the portable stuff for the nurses into them and stuff, and then jumps out the wide open window again.
Yeah, another window.
Cartoon concession, but no.
So he flies out the window, and then we catch up with the parents who are at the church praying. This is another thing that is too nitpicky, but I have to bring it up. It's Christmas in New York, and they're the only couple in the church.
And also, I think that was St. Patrick's, which is one of the most popular churches in all of New York.
Yeah. And I'm not even Catholic, but even I know, like, that's, if there was like one of two times you're going to church in a year, like that was one of them, right? Like Christmas Eve.
Well, if you weren't a horrible Catholic like me, yes.
Right. Well, I mean, even like if you're being dragged by your family to go to something or whatever, but it would be more than one single couple there. Again,
at St. Patrick's, which is one of the like the most popular, or St. Patrick's or St. Peter's? St. Peter's, sorry.
Okay, either way. Big Catholic church in the city on Christmas, either Christmas Eve, we're assuming.
Christmas week. Let's go with week.
Sure. But anyway, so they're...
Because people were traveling that morning, and I don't think the kids at the Institute would have all traveled on Christmas Eve. That seems like terrible timing.
It pans out, and you see the Warrens on the balcony watching them. This is like mobster shit, And once again, he's probably just feeling guilty and trying to process everything. And then Magneto floats in behind him. And just trying to recruit him. He doesn't like allow for a lot of time for information to soak in.
No, he gives very culty vibes for it, where it's like, I'm somebody like you, and then he starts asking like the leading questions of like, is this a gift or do you feel blessed, and like all those things that make Warren feel very unsure of himself, which was Magneto's whole MO of making him knock this child almost to their death.
Yeah, and I felt like it was an echo or like a derivative of his speech to Alex at the end of the first season. It's like he's like, in his mind, he's like learned a few things, so he like tweaked his speech. Still didn't work.
No, it's not a great speech, and I think it only works on really susceptible people, which was why it worked on Alex, didn't work on Warren, why it worked on the Brotherhood kids,
Yeah, and so then
because he literally says the whole like, now you're like living alone in shame, and it's like, not wrong. He's sitting in the dark on Christmas Eve, so
and so, or Christmas week, right?
Shut up, Ron.
And then they just have like a battle up there, and I thought that's when the parents were going to notice.
Well, he also does the whole like, but it's cool. You're trying to help these pathetic people, and that's where he gets into like the homo superior of it all, of like mutants are elevated beyond humans. Like he made sure to throw that in there of like, you're not one of them, you're better than them,
Yeah. And so, they get in a big fight. It should be very clangy and loud, but I guess it wasn't, or it's too far away from the individual couple that's at the church. And
until they start fighting above and the chandelier starts getting involved, and then they get out.
I think at first Magneto used like a candle stand, I think, and like wrapped around Warren, and then
Warren gets out of it so smoothly, though. You gotta give him credit. He just like, I don't know, became like a fucking ferret, where it's just like, I don't have bones, and I slid right out.
He worms out of it. He's just like whoop, and I should know this because I spent time in church as a kid, but chandelier is not the right word, but you know what we're talking about, like the large lighting fixtures over like a cathedral or a church.
I'm calling that a chandelier.
Yeah, I guess
I don't know if that's wrong, but I'm calling it a chandelier.
I guess when I think of chandeliers, I think of like the really like a lot of like light sources coming off, and this was like the one big thing. Either way, Magneto rips it out of the ceiling and ties it around Warren, and then that's when the parents notice.
Yes,
I don't know what's going through their heads, because they're in a church and they're seeing like
they're seeing an angel be attacked.
An angel be attacked by a guy in like a purple and red metal armor suit. It's wild.
And also Warren's outfit is darker colors right now too than it's what they saw earlier, but like cool, they're shadowy figures with wings floating above you,
Yeah. And then Scott zaps Magneto from off screen and basically
shoots him out of the church. Like he shoots him that fucking hard
through the stained glass window, and then he shoots at Warren to free him from the thing. And I was like, it's kind of funny because they did accurately depict what you always just discussed about the optic blast being a force blast thing. But it's kind of, when I looked at it, for some reason I was like processing, like, that's the equivalent of like a normal person punching a chain to release someone.
Yes. Yeah, it's like I'm going to free you. Stand still as I hit you with this hammer at point blank range.
Yeah. So Warren's there, and he's like, it doesn't rip the chains, it just like punches it, I guess, to loosen it up or something, so you can squirm out of it. That was really great. And then Magneto flies back like immediately, like he zooms back in, and they have like another fight, and then church fight. And I don't think the parents are like, I don't know what they're thinking right now because there's so much happening.
I think they ran out at this point. I think they've given up hope.
And
if you go to pray for your daughter to not die and two demons are fighting above you, you've stopped believing in God at that point.
Or you're like, is this not, how is this gonna do it? Actually, I guess it technically did answer their prayers. They don't know that.
Not really.
Because the battle saved Warren. No, it didn't. Yeah, never mind. Yeah,
no.
It didn't. I don't think, okay, never mind. I don't know.
I don't think you know how prayers work, Rod.
Yeah, all of us, right? So then Rogue tries to like absorb a little bit of Magneto, and it's this like thing where she like reaches under his helmet to touch him. At first I didn't think she got to it in time, but
because he stopped her pretty quickly, so I got that same impression that it was like it wasn't enough.
And he throws her off, but then you see his eyes glow first. I guess that's supposed to be a signal that something's like haywire with him.
Right. And then her eyes glow. I was like, oh, is she evil now?
All right. That's the part she got. And then they start fighting for a bit, but she flies after him, and they just like go through the city.
In particular, I always think it's this Empire State Building. That's the Chrysler Building. For some reason, I have like a mental block with that building, and I always fuck.
You're right, because it doesn't have the balconies to stand on. Okay, because I wrote Empire as well. Okay.
Yeah, props to every one of the wikis for correcting that for me. Then there's also the SE building, which I was so disappointed in myself that I did not immediately. That's Stark Enterprises.
Oh, okay. I didn't put that together. I mean,
because I was like, what the fuck is the SE building in New York City? And like, there's not an SE building, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm a dumbass.
That's funny. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my note here is like, they go to, well, it's Empire, but Chrysler Building, and cause mass destruction. Like, that's like the beginnings of Battle of New York for MCU, right?
Yeah.
Smashing into the side of skyscrapers.
Yeah, and he throws the giant bird, which, is that still technically a gargoyle at that point, if it's a bird head?
I guess. I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. The giant bird head, which I love that, especially even as they were fighting the church, they showed the metal rebar as the reason why he was able to throw chunks of rock at people.
Yeah, that goes through the structures and stuff.
Yeah, and throws the giant bird head at Rogue.
And then Angel got there in time, caught her, and stopped her from falling and going splat on the sidewalk.
And she gives a little bit of the look. She's like,
I know, I was like, hey, Scott's not available, but this guy definitely is.
Right, this might be a better choice for you.
Yeah, he's richer.
Also rich.
Yeah, he's richer, and the way they animated him, more handsome, maybe not age appropriate. I keep forgetting about ages in here because of animation and stuff. I don't know. He could be 40 or 30 or 20. We don't know.
I think he's still a teenager.
He's still okay.
I think he's still a teenager.
Okay, so
could be wrong. Hasn't been confirmed. Think teenager.
Real Rogue, not a bad option. And then every time you make out a little bit, you can fly for a while. So back at the hospital, Rogue, Scott, and Warren are sitting in the waiting room, kind of anonymous from the parents. I don't know if the parents have just like not recognized the same set of people wherever they go, including above them in church.
They're distracted. Right. They're distracted by their daughter almost dying and then demons fighting above them. Right. I give them a pass here. It's been a rough fucking day, Rod.
Yeah. But see, that was the other thing, was like, they seem kind of okay at the hospital. They just like went back. They're like, you know what? We're just going to pretend. It's like the last episode. Like, did you see that? Nope. And neither did you. Okay. And then we're back at the waiting room.
It's kind of like at that point, maybe don't go to the public church. Maybe just go to the spot in the hospital that is made for people to pray in.
Yeah, the little chapel or something.
Yeah, go to the chapel. That's got to be better, because then at least if something is happening with your daughter, you're not like down the street in New York.
Right. And then while Scott, Rogue, and Warren are talking, because they're kind of giving Warren the spiel about like, you could come be with us, and Warren, rightfully so, is like, you sound like Magneto. He's like, no, but it's different. It's like, yeah, that sure, everything changes now.
Yeah, their explanation was, well, he's on a power trip and we're just like trying to fit in and put it to good use. But then Scott does the thing that I have not liked in this series, and it's one of the only things that, like, it's probably a hindsight scenario that it doesn't play as well today, but it's the whole, like, well, we have to keep it on the DL because people aren't ready for us.
Yeah.
And that doesn't ring true in 2023 to me. It's like, yes, there are not people who are going to be okay with it and support you, but fuck those people, you know?
Was early 2000s, was this the whole, like, don't ask, don't tell era?
Probably.
So that kind of fits. He just, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't age well now, but at the time it was very, like, that was the progressive thought, was we're still going to other, but just don't, whatever.
Yeah, because it would have been towards the tail end of that, because I just looked it up. Ellen came out in 1997.
Yeah, and that was still a big deal.
That was a massive deal.
Yeah.
It was the first moment.
She lost her sitcom from that, right? And that's what started the talk show.
Well, didn't she lose the sitcom and then they gave her another one? I don't know.
And so I think, like, I remember seeing a really tearful interview with her of losing a show, and I think it was the big sitcom that starred her, and then kind of, like, I believe either directly or indirectly led to the talk show. But either way, yeah, it's a thing that tracks for the time, but didn't age too well. But then Warren goes,
well, he basically says, he's like, yeah, I think I'm good. He's like, I'm not gonna, like, shut it down for forever, but he's also like, I'm not coming back with you guys.
Yeah. And I think he leans in closer to overhear what's happening with the little girl, and that's when Rogue asks Scott, like, you think he's gonna come home with us? And he's like, probably not. I like the honesty.
But that's where we find out that Haley who's the name of the little girl, is doing okay. So
yeah, she woke up.
And then you get every X-Men show has to have in a Christmas episode, apparently, is one of the girls starts to tear up. Like we saw it with Jubilee in the Morlocks. But Rogue, like, you could tell she's like, oh, I'm a goth girl. I can't have emotions now.
Yeah.
I can only have my own sad. I can't be sad or happy for other people.
And I think this might be where Jingle Bells definitely played. It was either here or, like, another scene where they're in the city, but, like, at one of these points Jingle Bells is played. It would make sense kind of here to, like, because that's how they end it.
Well, then we also get the holiday montage, which you see Jean with her family buying trees, Kitty lighting all the candles of the menorah with her family, Kurt at the airport to greet his family, which I love that in theory they have only seen him, maybe he sent over, like, pictures or something, but they're like, oh my god, we could pick up our son from the airport and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, in public. Yeah, so this is where the Jingle Bells played then over this montage. That's where I remember hearing it.
Spike is having a snowball fight with his dad, and they decide to, like, hit Storm and Evan's mom. And of all the people to throw a snowball at, you might be the dumbest human being to ever throw a snowball at Storm or Bobby. Those are your two dumbest choices.
And she kind of does, like, a sideways cyclone.
We have Logan at a bar playing pool by himself. One of the wikis, the Marvel Animation Universe wiki, mentioned that, and I couldn't find the interview they were referencing, but the directors originally thought about having Easter eggs in that scene, but chose not to because they wanted to be more impactful of how alone Logan actually was in that shot.
Gotcha. Okay. So this was the shot that led me to believe, like, him spending Christmas alone was supposed to be him being somewhere, like, a different city or something, to spin off to some other episodes that we're going to see him in. That's why he, like, left. But otherwise, we don't find out why he wants to be alone on Christmas.
I think it's just, that's him. He is the lone wolf of the group, and certain things he'd rather be alone during instead of around a big happy group of people, or even the smaller sad group of people who didn't get to travel, Which also, one thing with the whole Rogue, she doesn't, like, ever mention or visit Irene or anything like that. She's like, my adopted mom, I'm just gonna fuck off and never go see her.
That's true.
Oh.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, she knows Mystique. Does she just assume by proxy
at the end of the first season? I don't know. But it's
It's interesting. Where she's like, you know what? Even if she's not, then let's just not open that can of worms again.
Yeah, maybe. And then Xavier and Hank are, I'm sure it is spiked coffee at that point. There is Jameson in those cups.
Yeah. I saw an updated hack for that where somebody just takes, like, a tub of ice cream and just pours Bailey's on it.
That's not a hack.
For Christmas, though.
It's not a hack, though.
Yeah, if you add sprinkles, then it's a hack.
Okay. There are certain phrases in the modern vernacular that drive me absolutely insane. One is hack when it's not actually a hack.
Yeah.
It's just a recipe. And the other is Easter eggs when they are key plot points to a thing.
Yeah.
Those are not Easter eggs.
I think the word hack though is slowly and now quickly morphing into not meaning the original thing anymore. It's just
It's mean the original thing.
It's more of like I think in the next few years it's just going to straight up become like the 5-minute crafts, like those like spam videos. Like hack is going to almost be like something that's is definitely not real.
I mean, they're already starting to get there right now. There are certain things that are like, this is a hack, and then people try it and it's like, this does not work.
Yeah.
The only thing that we did not talk about fully, I sort of mentioned it, was the Marvel Animated Universe wiki went absolutely nuts with this episode in particular about goofs. And I'm going to read a few as a sample. Holy shit, dude. There's got to be at least 20 of these things listed.
Oh, no.
So, like I said, the streets are completely devoid of traffic when the fire trucks go through. Throughout the episode, visible breath does not appear despite constantly cold temperatures. The Angel Statue Terrace and Fountain, however, that's in the middle of Central Park and not near the skyscrapers like shown. The accident on the side of the bridge, there is a car stop pointing the wrong direction that was not involved in the pileup.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
As soon as Warren loses the doctor coat, his mask is back on without having touched it.
Nano.
Oh, I was right. It was St. Patrick's Cathedral. The actual St. Patrick's Cathedral is significantly longer than the one shown here.
Yeah, I get that pass. They probably reconstruct that thing several times from all the angel battles.
There's a lot. Oh, here's an interesting one. We could ask this of Steven when we see him at LA Comic-Con. Kitty is lighting the menorah incorrectly. Character designer and occasional director Stephen E. Gordon had left instructions on how to light one, but was not around for the final animation, and admits that it can be confusing for people who are not Jewish.
That's kind of sad because it was like meant to be a representative moment, and then
right. But also, if you don't practice, like I would not know the order of which to light them and such too. But yeah, like I said, 20 to 25 things in the goof category, and this is the show that sometimes the goof category doesn't have anything, and the trivia has one thing on it. So
yeah.
There was a super fan for this episode. There are more screenshots than I know what to do with when I have to set this one up for Instagram. So
that's funny. I guess because it's the Christmas episode, so that's why. But yeah,
at least we have a bunch of shit that we could steal and repurpose for Christmas week, Rod.
There you go. Yeah, I always like Christmas episodes. This one was like vaguely that. It was like it's got it's set at Christmas time, but it didn't have directly to do with it, except for everybody being away from the mansion.
It's Die Hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like where it happens then, and there's like a little redemption happening, but
it's the framing, but it's not the core to the story.
And Die Hard is still like my favorite Christmas Eve movie to watch every year.
Yeah,
like I just put it on in the background, and every year I always order too late. I want to and I didn't this year because now it's just becoming like a joke to get the Hans Gruber Falling from Nakatomi Tower advent calendar. Last year I think I tried to get it. Now it's definitely too late, but like they were like it's going to be 15 more days. I'm like, Advent will be over by then.
You mean the middle of December? Thanks. Yeah. I hate cheer and happiness, but it's a good episode.
Well, thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and no more CastBox, right?
Fuck, I have to edit that.